starts now.
Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko, and we begin with that bizarre and baffling encounter in Northeast Portland when an intruder strolled into a stranger's home and headed right for a kid's bedroom. Let's bring in Alma McCarty. Alma, you talked to the homeowner. She was just steps away at the time.
David, Kelsey Smith often leaves the door unlocked during the day while she's at home. But after this shocking scenario, she's completely reconsidering how to keep her family safe. The whole thing recorded on Ring camera video. A note here, we've blurred the intruder's face and aren't naming her since the DA decided not to file charges.
There was no knock, no doorbell chime before an unexpected intruder opened the front door Monday afternoon and let herself into Kelsey Smith's Northeast Portland home.
I was out on the porch chatting with a friend. It's a direct line of sight to the door, but I was facing my yard and the dogs started going crazy.
Barking dogs didn't stop the trespasser, who crawled onto the bed and curled up on a pile of clean laundry.
Finally, I got up and went to the front door to see if there was somebody there, and there wasn't. So I was wandering around the living room just chatting on the phone, and the dogs continued to make tons of noise. So I walked into the kids' room to see what all the noise was about.
What is your problem? Oh my God,
I thought it was my husband who had just curled up on the bed to take a nap, and then after another second I realized it wasn't.
Gail, I need help.
Moments after Smith backed out of her son's room, the person on the bed jumped up.
And she picked up the ottoman and sort of bum rushed me as I was backpedaling out the door. And she threw it at me and hit me with it and then just sauntered out the door.
Luckily, Smith says none of her children were in the room at the time. She explains they had the cameras that recorded this shocking interaction installed just a couple weeks ago to keep eyes on her 10-year-old son.
She came into my children's room, my kids, and one of them is, quadriplegic and medically fragile, so he couldn't tell me if something happened. He couldn't call out, he couldn't defend himself, and that's really frightening.
Portland police found the intruder close by and took her into custody for burglary and harassment. However, the Multnomah County DA declined to charge the woman, who's scheduled for a mental fitness hearing next week for a separate case. Smith says while she doesn't have all the answers, certainly a situation like this one underscores a need for the city to do more.
We need more services. We need more advocacy. My big concern is that, she's going to walk into the wrong house. I mean, she didn't have a problem assaulting me. She's going to do that to somebody else and she's going to get shot. And this is something that's preventable.
The intruder was released from jail, but officials there say they cannot tell us where she is. We've checked with the DA's office to find out more about why charges were not filed. We're still waiting to hear back. David?
Yeah, a question definitely worth getting the answer to. Alma, thank you for that. Tonight, we're also following up on our homeless crisis in a large encampment off North Columbia Boulevard that is surrounding businesses say is still causing major problems. We first went to the camp about 2 months ago. At the time, the city said it was on their list for removal, but it is still there. And neighbors say it's gotten worse. The city told our Blair Best their impact reduction team has assessed this particular property 7 times over the past 60 days. And here we go. They say it's scheduled to be removed soon. But nearby business owners say they are still dealing with some campers who are stealing, and they're worried about their safety.
The mayor, he's wanting people to work with him. What more can we do? We're telling the police department all these shots we're hearing. We're telling all the theft that's going on. My wife has emailed all the city commissioners, the mayor, no response.
Oh gosh, every day it impacts our business. We're losing thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands now.
They're gonna have to pay me to move or I'm not moving.
Well, Portland police tell us they were at that camp Friday night after someone reported gunshots. Though officers say they didn't find any evidence of gunfire, police add that they often get calls about this particular camp. Well, we're keeping a close eye on a possible nationwide freight rail worker strike tonight that's already affecting Amtrak trains in the Pacific Northwest. More than 50,000 conductors and engineers across the country are prepared to strike. So Amtrak says starting tomorrow, all of its long distance trains, that includes the Coast Starlight, are canceled. And while the potential strike does not include Amtrak workers, the trains in our area and really in much of the country run on tracks owned, maintained, or dispatched by freight railroads. So we talked to Bill White, who was planning to head to Wisconsin on a family trip moments after he found out he wasn't going anywhere.
Because of this, I'm probably not going to go to Wisconsin. It's just, the logistics and everything, and when you put all your time and effort into something and you're on a set income, you don't have many choices.
The Washington State Department of Transportation is also warning people about potential cancellations on the Cascades route. Amtrak says it has buses at the ready so people will not get stranded Thursday into Friday, though it doesn't appear there would be any extra buses for the weekend. Well, we've been talking a lot about inflation that is hovering near 4-decade highs, and now that pain looks like it's about to extend to some rent bills in Oregon, because in 2023, landlords will be able to hike rent up to a whopping 14.6%. Tim Gordon explains why.
Budget-crushing inflation is having a big impact on renters in Oregon. State economists did the math and came up with a 14.6% cap on rent increases for next year, a higher number than many expected because it's tied to inflation.
I'm shocked. Everybody should be shocked.
Kim McCarty is executive director of the statewide Community Alliance of Tenants. She says the past few years have been very tough on renters, and many pandemic-related protections are ending.
And then you pile on top of that the possibility of a $200 rent increase, a 14.6% possible increase in rent on top of the inflation that's happening to your food, your health care, childcare, et cetera. Where people are at a breaking point.
We are hearing from you on this too. Hundreds of comments on the KGW Facebook page, most expressing frustration. One writing, with the increase, people are going to have to get second and third jobs just to have a roof over their heads. But some also acknowledging the landlords, one saying landlords are struggling with inflation also. Everything about homeownership is up.
14.6%, definitely, I'm sure to a lot of people sounds like, that's a big hike.
Christian Bryant is president of the Portland Area Rental Owners Association. He also teaches people the rental business. Bryant says he understands the concern, but does not believe that most landlords able to raise rents 14.6% next year will do so. That said,
the way it's set up right now is if you're a landlord, you're a business. And if your costs go up, just like at your restaurant, or the Home Depot, when they had to pay more for the materials that they sell, they charged the end user more.
This is a groundbreaking piece of legislation.
Governor Kate Brown signed Oregon's rent control bill into law in 2019, the first of its kind in the nation. It caps rent increases annually at 7% plus the Consumer Price Index measure of inflation. In light of this 14.6% cap, Brown's office put out a statement saying in part, the governor is deeply concerned about the maximum rental increases that will be allowed under Oregon law in 2023, and she urges the legislature to prioritize action to mitigate future increases, adding, with today's inflation rates, it makes sense to re-examine state law. Kim McCarty says things do need to change.
Tenants represent 40% of the households in Oregon. This is everybody's issue. And we could easily, in Oregon, have your average household priced out of the market.
Tim Gordon, KGW News.
To get you caught up on tonight's other headlines now, Vancouver police have arrested the man they say set fire to Mayor Ann McInerney Ogle's house on Monday night. He's been identified as Aidan Murray, and investigators say they believe he is the same person who also broke into a restaurant near downtown Vancouver Wednesday morning. Now, no word on any motive for the alleged arson there. Murray is due in court on Thursday. Governor Kate Brown asking President Biden to issue a federal emergency declaration for the state. It is all due to extreme wildfire risk, with several big fires still burning. They include the Cedar Creek fire southeast of Eugene at 92,000 acres burned, and the Double Creek fire in northeast Oregon. That's at 157,000 acres. Now, if granted, Oregon would be the first state ever to receive a declaration like this for wildfire response. And the search is on for whoever has been throwing screws on the road and causing damage to cars in St. Helens. Officials say this is happening around Highway 30 and Gabble Road. To give you a sense of the scale, the local Les Schwab Tire Center says about 130 vehicles have come in with tire damage. Wow. In just the last few days, anyone with information is asked to contact the city of St. Helens. We'll call it a malodorous mystery, one of the worst kind that's been disgusting people in rural Multnomah County. And now the county is putting out a bulletin it hopes will help track down the person they have nicknamed, and I'm going to try and say this with a straight face, the East County Dumper. Yeah. Since 2018, yes, 4 years, somebody has been illegally dumping plastic bags filled with human feces mixed with cat litter along rural roads, sometimes 6 or 7 bags at a time. Over 500 have been sniffed out, run over, and smushed in areas near Troutdale, Springdale, and Corbett. County code enforcement really worry it could wash into drainage ditches and contaminate waterways. Officials say they still have no leads.
We just want it to stop. We're not interested in fines or civil penalties or prosecution. We really just want it to stop. It's draining our resources and it's polluting a beautiful area.
Authorities say if you spot the East County Dumper, do not try to stop them. They likely need some help or some kind of support. Instead, get a plate number or description and call 911.